So Donald Trump is going to release the files of RFK, JFK, and MLK, but not Epstein. So that's 3 out of 4. So we could be happy about 75% of the files that he's going to release. Who killed JFK? Who killed Robert Kennedy? Who killed Martin Luther King? Now, I just want to look at this little wanted for treason thing, right? So he's wanted for treason, right? This is the president of the United States. And then just reading some of the things that he's wanted for. And then I got some comments I want to make about the JFK, RFK, and MLK assassinations. So it's saying that JFK is wanted for treasonous activities against the United States for betraying the Constitution, which he swore to uphold. Like what? The 14th Amendment, the 22nd Amendment. He's turning the sovereignty of the U.S. over to the communist-controlled United Nations. Is it communist? He's betraying our friends. Cuba. Cuba's our friend. Katanga. What the hell is Katanga? Portugal. And befriending our enemies. Russia, Yugoslavia, Poland. Why is Poland our enemies? And Russia, that's the Cold War, the Yugoslavia. He's been wrong on innumerable issues affecting the security of the U.S., the United Nations, Berlin Wall, the missile removal, Cuba, wheat deals. What did he do with wheat? Test ban treaty. What? No testing of nuclear weapons. The Berlin Wall, that was great. He broke the blockade, didn't he? He's been lax in enforcing communist registration laws. He's given support and encouragement to the communist-inspired racial rights. He's illegally invaded a sovereign state with federal troops. So that was what? To do integration. That was Martin Luther King, right? In Alabama or Mississippi. He's consistently appointed anti-Christians to the federal office, upholds the Supreme Court in its anti-Christian rulings. What anti-Christian rulings are you talking about? Aliens and known communists abound in federal offices. And then here's this one's an interesting one. He's been caught in fantastic lies to the American people, including personal ones like his previous marriage and divorce. That's a fantastic lie. I mean, presidents have been lying for quite some time, right? No new taxes. I do not know that Miss Lewinsky and then WMDs. And then Donald Trump lied 30,000 times in his first administration. And then when it comes to his previous marriage and divorce, I mean, he's been married, what, 3 or 4 times or so? Okay, so now I want to make a couple comments. This is great news. This is great news. I think that it's actually smart politically for him to release these files so everybody will just be distracted. This would be a big distraction for everybody. And then as he continues to dismantle the Constitution, right, so we'll all be distracted and say, well, who killed JFK? Who killed RFK? Who killed MLK? I think this is like one of the biggest mysteries of our time. Who killed our president? How come the government wouldn't tell us who killed our fucking president? And then Bobby Kennedy was going to be the next president. He essentially clinched the Democratic nomination. And then that's when LBJ had, stepped down. And then Martin Luther King, that's Jesus Christ here on earth. So let's start off with JFK, okay? So according to Roger Stone, Nixon had said that it was LBJ. LBJ did have the most to benefit from the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Now, what do I know? I don't know who did it. I know that one time you had the Jesse the Body Ventura. They said, who killed Kennedy? And he was like, Bob Parker. He had a name ready, locked and loaded. Who killed him? Oh, Bob Parker did. It's not Bob Parker, but he had a name. And I can never find that clip again, so I'm not for sure what name he had said. So it'd be interesting to see if he was right. So the thing that I know about JFK is essentially what the movie, right, Oliver Stone's movie, had just shown the Zapruder film. And the shot didn't come, the kill shot, when his head just fucking, blows up. The kill shot came from to the right, to the front, and to the right. They said Lee Harvey Oswald was back in the book depository from the back to the right. So if you shot from there, then his head would have gone to the, to the left and to the front. But his head goes back into the left. So JFK's head goes back into the left. Since JFK's head goes back into the left, that means there was a second gunman on the grassy knoll. For sure, without a doubt, there was a second gunman on the grassy knoll. Also, like how Oliver Stone had said that it's not conspiracy theorists, it's truth finders. These people are trying to get to the truth. They're trying to find out the truth. And I hope that the documents that they're going to release won't be redacted. And I hope they'll just, flat out say who shot fucking our goddamn president, who assassinated our fucking president. So that's the big thing with JFK, is that it's definitely the official version, the Warren Commission. It wasn't, the official version wasn't true. So we know that's a fucking lie. We know that there's a second gunman on the grassy knoll. Roger Stone also had said that LBJ, or Oliver Stone said that LBJ told the Warren Commission to not tie it to Russia and to not tie it to Cuba, because that could start a nuclear war if you try to tie it to Russia or Cuba. LBJ had the most to gain from it. LBJ becomes the president. LBJ was very ambitious. And then the thing that Roger Stone said when it came to Nixon, implicating it was LBJ, was both of them wanted the presidency. Nixon really wanted the presidency. LBJ really wanted the presidency, but Nixon wasn't willing to murder in order to get the presidency, whereas he felt that LBJ was willing to murder in order to get to the president, to get to the presidency, to become the president. So LBJ had a lot to gain. LBJ had a lot to gain. He's right there on the fucking Air Force One, taking the oath of office like that fucking day. So LBJ was he was shrewd, to say the least, and to say the most. He was downright despicable. Now, he's going to get the Civil Rights Act of 64 passed, and so he's going to get America integrated, and he's also going to have a big fat welfare state. So he was able to pass Medicare and Medicaid and a whole bunch of things. But so that's it for JFK. Now, we got Robert Kennedy, and then we got Martin Luther King. I know a lot about Robert Kennedy, and I'm just going to mention a couple things I know about Martin Luther King. So Martin Luther King, it was said that it was James Earl Ray. James Earl Ray was the official version, and James Earl Ray was just this racist piece of shit that shot MLK in Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis, Tennessee. Martin Luther King was there trying to help the sanitation workers and their union beat the strike. It was a strike, and they were trying to get better wages and better conditions. Martin Luther King's estate is going to have a civil court case that said that the government was liable. Now, the big thing I know about Martin Luther King and the FBI, well, there's a couple things, but Martin Luther King gets shot and killed, and then the FBI is right there on the scene, like they jumped out of the bushes or something. It's like, did you just kill him? Oh, no, we just been tailing him the whole time. We've been surveilling him and tailing him, and then he got fucking shot. You weren't protecting him. You weren't seeing if there was a threat around anywhere. So basically, by having this intimidation force that was always following Martin Luther King, I think that created the conditions. That's the most generous that you could say about the FBI. And at worst, maybe they knew every damn thing about James Earl Ray. I know that Martin Luther King III had forgiven James Earl Ray. I don't know if they believe this story or not. I think it seems very likely that James Earl Ray did commit it. But did James Earl Ray have help? The FBI just shows up right on the scene. Now, the FBI, COINTELPRO, they had been stalking Martin Luther King. And J. Edgar Hoover had tapped Martin Luther King's phone, and Martin Luther King, I think he had a mistress, or he was talking to some other woman that wasn't his wife. J. Edgar Hoover personally, this is the head of the FBI for like 5 presidencies, wrote a letter to Martin Luther King Jr. saying, hey, you know what you did, and you better fess up, or else it's going to come down and it's going to expose you. You're going to be exposed. In fact, you probably should just go ahead and kill yourself. So the FBI director is going to suggest to Martin Luther King, Jesus Christ here on earth, to kill himself, to just kill himself. Donald Trump says he wants Martin Luther King's dream to become a reality. He wants Martin Luther King's dream to come true. I want Martin Luther King's dream to become true as well. So that's most of what I know about Martin Luther King Jr. Now, Robert Kennedy, this one is more fascinating because I think I've gotten closer to the truth because I believe Robert Kennedy Jr. I believe his son. And his son doesn't believe that it was Sirhan Sirhan. Robert Kennedy Jr. thinks it was this guy named Eugene Thane Caesar. Caesar. Maybe I should get the exact spelling of it. So Eugene Thane Cesar. Yeah, Cesar. So Thane Eugene Caesar. It wasn't Sirhan. It was Thane Eugene Caesar. And there's a lot of evidence that suggests it. So you have the Democratic convention in California. You had the big rally. Robert Kennedy just won California, which means he's going to be the presumptive Democratic nominee. He's going to take one of the major political parties. So he's probably on his way to the presidency. So this is going to be at the climax. This will be at the height of Robert Kennedy's entire career. You just had JFK that was assassinated, 5 years ago, 1968. Robert Kennedy is going to become the next president. So Robert Kennedy is going to become the next president. He gives a little victory speech, and then he says, onwards and forwards, and then he's, going to go to the next states because you have all these different states and their primaries. So he steps down from the lectern, and then as he's walking out, instead of going the route that they had already talked about, he goes through the kitchen. And when he goes through the kitchen, Eugene Thane Caesar has Robert Kennedy by the arm. So it's almost like Thane Eugene Caesar is directing Robert Kennedy. So to start out with, RFK is going to get shot 4 times from behind. 4 times he's going to get shot from behind. And there was only 2 people that pulled a gun out in that moment. Sirhan has a revolver. And he shoots 2 times in the direction of Robert Kennedy. The crowd overtake him. And then he's just shooting wildly behind him. So the first 2 shots hit some guy in the head. And then the other one goes into a door jamb. And then the other 6 shots are just shot up into the roof or shot all the way in the back, shooting other people. Every bullet could be accounted for out of the revolver of Sirhan. So you had 8 bullets in the revolver, 2 shots go forward, which didn't hit Robert Kennedy, and then 6 bullets are shot behind him. And now he's got no more bullets. Robert Kennedy was shot 4 shots from behind. And then they said that it was from a low trajectory because the bullets are going upwards. So he shot from behind with 4 bullets, all of them going upward. Now there is a report that said that Thane Eugene Caesar had pulled the gun out and he shot him like a cowboy, shot from the hip. And the idea was, since he was the security guard, security guard, they said he was a plumber just a week ago. How did you become a security guard for the president when you was just a plumber a week ago? There's actually more to that too. He actually has top secret clearance. He had worked with Hughes Tool Company, which was a arms manufacturing company. And he was a CIA agent. He claimed that he was a CIA agent in these other interviews. So Thane Eugene Caesar is taking Bobby Kennedy by the arm, leading him into this ambush, leading him into this trap. Sirhan, it did seem like he was radicalized on his own because of Palestine, which that's interesting too. He had heard that Kennedy was going to send Israel like a whole bunch of fighter jets, and then since he was a Palestinian, he felt that the fighter jets were just going to be used to kill Palestinians. So Sirhan was either pushed into doing this thing. He was drunk. He was young. He tried to shoot Bobby Kennedy, but he didn't shoot Bobby Kennedy. So it's saying that Thane Eugene Caesar had pulled his gun out to shoot, Sirhan. Oh, yeah? Or maybe to shoot Bobby Kennedy. Not only did the 4 shots that came from behind, they had an upward trajectory like somebody that shot from the hip, like Thane Eugene Caesar did, but there was also carbon tattoos. Carbon tattoos meaning that the gun was so damn close that when Robert Kennedy was shot, that the carbon that emitted out of the gun had burned into his skin. So Robert Kennedy got shot 4 times from behind. Sirhan is in front of him. Upward trajectory. And they had carbon tattoos. Now, if that isn't enough evidence, he's a CIA agent with top clearance, top secret clearance. LBJ fucking hated the Kennedys, and he especially hated Bobby Kennedy. They had a very tumultuous relationship. Not only did LBJ think of him as a political threat, but he probably thought of him as like an actual personal threat because he's the most likely person who did his brother in. So Bobby Jr. is going to try to talk to Eugene Thane Caesar, and Caesar at the time is in the Philippines. He's just chilling in the Philippines. And then he said he wanted $10,000 for the interview, then $20,000, then $25,000. And then he just didn't go talk to him after that because he felt that he was being played. Now, Eugene Thane Caesar, he gave interviews about how he hated the fucking Kennedys. He thought the Kennedys were just giving the country to the communists and the blacks. That's what he said. Oh, they're just giving the country to the communists and to the blacks. Bobby Kennedy had Eugene Thane Caesar's tie in his death grip. So if you see the picture of Bobby Kennedy dying on the floor, he's got Eugene Thane Caesar's tie in his hand. And what Bobby Kennedy Jr. thinks that his father had done, since he knew he got shot from the back, and then he got shot point blank range, was he had grabbed a hold of the guy that shot him, and he pulled the tie, and he still had the tie in his hands. So Bobby Kennedy is going to die with Eugene Thane Caesar's tie in his death grip. Another interesting part was that the gun was thrown into a lake. So how come Eugene Thane Caesar, why didn't they confiscate the gun? Why did he get rid of the gun? Why is the gun thrown in the damn lake? So to me, it's crystal clear that it was Eugene Thane Caesar, who's dead now. He's dead now. So I'm just going to mention this other part just because I've thought about it later on. But when Robert Kennedy was shot, he's lying on the ground, and they're going to pick him up to take him to the ambulance. But as he's lying on the ground, he said a couple things. First of all, he said, nobody else is hurt, are they? Is everybody okay? That's how selfless Bobby Kennedy was. John F. Kennedy was the conservative. Bobby Kennedy was the liberal. Bobby Kennedy was his mother's. And so when he's lying on the ground, dying because of these gunshot wounds, he told the people that was going to pick up his body and I guess to put him on some sort of gurney or something to not move him. And I feel like if you have a gunshot wound, there could be could have pierced straight through the lung or could have hit, barely at some of the organs. Or maybe your organ is just hanging on by a thread. And then when you move them, then the fucking lung, just completely detaches. They shouldn't have moved Bobby Kennedy. Bobby Kennedy shouldn't have been moved. He said, don't move me. So his first reaction was, everybody else is okay, right? He just got fucking shot, and he's like, is everybody else okay? And it's like, well, actually, several people got shot. One guy got shot in the head, but he lived. And then his last words was, don't move me. Don't move me. Then he gets moved, and then he dies. So yeah, I think who killed Bobby Kennedy was this Thane Eugene Caesar. Thane Eugene Caesar. And then people are just saying, well, we don't want that to be released because then people are really going to hate the CIA. I had heard that Kennedy wanted to smash the CIA into 1 million pieces for trying to get him stuck into a war with Cuba with the Bay of Pigs fiasco. So the Bay of Pigs fiasco, he apologized for, but he felt like he was pressured to do it in order to get into, some sort of shooting war with Cuba. Oh, shit. Instead of sending a bunch of Cuban exiles to Cuba, well, now we got to put American boots on the ground. So the CIA, the war machine, the military-industrial complex, the arms industry, they want to go into Cuba. After the Bay of Pigs, he said he wanted to smash the CIA into 1 million pieces. Well, now the CIA feels like they're on the ropes. Now the CIA feels like they're going to get destroyed. Well, they can't just kill John F. Kennedy. Well, they're going to have to kill Bobby Kennedy, too. John F. Kennedy had ordered the leader of South Vietnam, Diem, to be assassinated 3 weeks earlier. So talk about the chickens coming home to roost. Malcolm X was absolutely right. JFK had ordered the South Vietnamese president to be assassinated. He got killed, and then one of his entourage happened to be a communist. So somehow the communists did infiltrate South Vietnam, the government of South Vietnam. Diem was a Catholic. He was, not a very popular leader, not a very good politician, but he was our guy. And basically the world was like, well, shit, it sucks to be the enemy of America, but it's even worse to be the friend of America because, well, they're going to go ahead and get you assassinated. But the chicken's coming home to roost. I'm sure it wasn't the very same CIA agents that had orchestrated the coup d'etat, the assassination of the South Vietnamese president, Diem, at the time. But when I think about the military going abroad and setting up this military adventurism, does that eventually come back home? A lot of troops come back and they say they become cops. Well, if they thought that the Iraqi people, that they were just shooting Blackwater, was just shooting willy-nilly, they come back to America. Do they think of the American people as these damn Afghanistan people who are, they're not worthy and they're not good enough and they're just a bunch of trash and they just kind of dehumanize us? So I feel that the chickens came home to roost. Maybe it was the same CIA team. Maybe it was a different CIA team. Nixon had a thing where he said, okay, you could do that thing, but just don't let it come back to the White House. So he'd give the okay, and then if it turned into a debacle, then he would pretend he had nothing to do with it. That was Watergate, right? And some other things. The 73 assassination of the president of Chile. You could do the damn thing, but just don't let it come back to the White House. So don't say that I told you to do it. I'll deny it. But if you're successful, then I'll take the credit for it. And thank you for doing it. You're, an asset to America. So when you send a CIA squad out to assassinate your own guy in South Vietnam, is it that big of a shocker to think that that same CIA would come back and take out not only the president, but his brother to make sure those damn Kennedys, and the Kennedys represented the average working class man. Joe Kennedy was shrewd as hell, but I feel like the Kennedys probably actually loved America and Americans and the American people. I love the Kennedys, frankly. The Kennedys should have been the dynasty that never happened. And so even though I can't stand Donald, I think that this is a great thing that the JFK, the RFK, and the MLK files are going to be released. So we'll see how close, my understanding of those assassinations are. And I'm glad that Bobby Jr. is a part of the administration. He's part of the health, which, okay, I don't know if that has, what the hell is that? But he picked the right horse. He picked the right horse, and he's a part of the administration. So I think it's fantastic that the JFK, RFK, and MLK files have been released. Eugene, Thane, Caesar.